Well, should you roll over your 401k plan and another bank failure you probably didn't hear about? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon and welcome to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I'm your host, Bob Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, we're not taking questions today, and if you do have a question for me, I want to invite you to go to the website. There's a Q&A at the top of the page. Just click through and send your question in, and I will answer the question for you. I love to get questions that way, and if you have comments, I'd love to hear your comments as well, but that's a resource for you to use at prudentmoney.com. While you're there at the website, make sure you sign up for the Prudent Money e-letter. That keeps you posted and informed on what you need to know as we post information to the website. And as well as if you miss a program or you just like the whole idea of podcasting, you can catch our program in podcast form right after the show. We post it, and that's on the website, but it's also on any of the major podcasting platforms that you like to consume your podcast. So that's all starts at prudentmoney.com. So I get all the time, I have people send me emails and texts. Hey, have you heard about this guy or heard about this girl, this analyst, and something they found on YouTube and got great information, talks about things that you don't really hear in the media. That always kind of perks my ears. So I went to this guy, and he's, let's just say he's very high energy. And I was about to discount, we'll just say discount and go do something else while I gotten into about 10 to 15 minutes of it. Then he started talking about a bank failure. And my ears perked up. And because I hate to say this, but somehow this bank failure slipped off of my radar. I don't know. I did not get to see this information when it happened last Friday. And what was interesting to me, well, that's first of all, because I generally don't miss it, even if I've got something going on pretty much all day that keeps me occupied and keeps me distracted from anything else. The big stuff I don't miss. I missed it somehow. And then there was nothing really that I found on Monday and Tuesday. And it was a bank that's taken over by the FDIC, Heartland Tri-State Bank of Elkhart, Kansas. Now, we're not talking a very big bank, but I think it's significant anytime that we do have a bank failure to be paying attention. Because the question is this the start of something? The FDIC agreed to assume all the deposits of Heartland Tri-State Bank to protect customers, entering a purchase and assumption agreement with Dream First Bank of Syracuse, Kansas. Dream First Bank. Interesting. That means the 4 branches of Heartland Tri-State Bank will reopen as branches of Dream First Bank on Monday. The recent closures of First Republic, Silicon Valley Bank, and Signature Bank, remember all those banks, big banks, went down earlier this year, have shaken up the banking industry, prompting lawmakers to introduce new legislation to protect customer deposits and stabilize the financial system. In other words, they're trying to put new legislation together to where the government can really, what I think is the unthinkable, because this is not a good pathway to be going down. Cover all the deposits. So if a bank goes down, nobody loses any money. FDIC insurance was a thing of the past because don't need it, and everything's okay. I just don't think that is a way to run the system. There's a lot of potential problems that come along with that type of system. So Heartland Tri-State Bank is the first bank to fail since First Republic, the nation's second largest bank failure ever in early May. The FDIC said bank customers can access their money by writing checks or using ATM or debit cards. They also won't have to change their banking as they will automatically become customers of Dream First Bank. Heartland Tri-State Bank had approximately $139 million in total assets and $130 million in total deposits, the FDIC said. Dream First Bank also agreed to buy essentially all of Heartland's Tri-State's failed assets. Loan customers should also be largely unaffected, the FDIC said, because the FDIC and Dream First Bank are entering an agreement to share in the losses of potential recoveries on the loans. So it's another bank bailout. Really can't get any clearer than that. And what is amazing to me is that the media did not run with this story, and obviously got very little exposure. Now, I will be the first to admit I've been a little bit preoccupied from the standpoint of media and stories going this week. I've had a lot of things going on, but still, to miss this says even when I'm at my most preoccupied, let's say, I don't miss things like this, and I've completely missed it. So I guess it's now no really big deal that banks fail. And of course, this wasn't a big bank, but I think this bank failure on the heels of some pretty major bank failures is one of those things that kind of gets people's attention, or should get people's attention. But it's just something else to be keeping your eyes on and making sure that you're staying on top of the risk that is boiling over in the marketplace. Now, all I hear is the information about the brand new bull market. And I got to tell you, if I look at and this may or may not mean anything to you, trust me on this one. If I look at a chart and that chart shows what the stock market is doing, and I look at that and I compare it to past bear markets that ended, this chart does not look anything really like the bear markets that have ended. Don't really know what that means, but I feel like that this cycle has not even begun to be over. So we'll continue to take it day by day, look at the clues, talk about it. You can definitely tune in to Prudent Money because I'm going to be talking about it. And really, the reason that I do bring it up and speculate with you is because I want you to be thinking, I want you to be understanding what really is risk and what you should be focusing on, because I think that it's an educational process. I can show you what to focus on. I can't tell you that I always know or am correct about what it means. I'll be the very first to admit to that. But I think from a financial stewardship standpoint, it's our responsibility as stewards of what God has blessed us with to really focus in and watch when the environment is getting risky again. The environment, I don't think, has really changed that much, except for you got people running in buying stocks, and everybody's into the new wave of artificial intelligence, and even that doesn't seem right. So I don't know. Just stay on guard. If you were able to make a good return so far this year, get a lot of your losses back, you might. I'm not telling you to do this, but you just might think about, does it make sense for me to reduce risk? Now, I could be all wrong. Won't be the first time. And this could turn into a major bull market. And what's interesting, I think that we will figure this out here pretty soon. And I will be the first one to say, you know what, I was absolutely wrong. And, get out your buying list of stocks or mutual funds that you want to start taking some risk with. And we'll talk about it. But I don't think we're there yet. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. I wanted to address some questions that have come in. I am 62, looking to retire at 67. My question, I have a 401k with an old company with around $130,000 in it. I was thinking about rolling it over into the 401k of my current company, but what would you do with it? Would you roll it over? A great question, and a question that I'm unfortunately certain, a lot of people are going to be facing this year when it comes to their jobs, in the event that this recession starts to pick up some steam. Obviously, we're not into a recession right now. It's just like, the best way I can describe it is, we all live on the coast. The warning signs are going, it's getting cloudy, and there's a Cat 5 hurricane headed this way. That's kind of the way that I see it. Now, between now and when that Cat 5 hurricane hits, it could have greatly diminished down to a Cat 2 and not be that big of a deal, or a Cat 1 not be that big of a deal. But we're on hurricane, maybe we'll call it financial hurricane watch. And we can see the market conditions, the the environmental conditions deteriorating, or the weather deteriorating, let me say that. And the same thing here with the financial conditions. We'll get back to this in just a second. We are up against a break. This is Bob Brooks. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Most people pray alone, perhaps at night before falling asleep. But when was the last time you grabbed someone by the hand and prayed together? Have you ever done that? Monday on Focal Point, Pastor Mike Fabarez poses a direct challenge to pray with others for boldness to advance the gospel. Don't miss the message titled Praying for Courage, Monday on Focal Point.
Focal Point, weekday mornings at 8:30, here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory and the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. I'm not taking questions today, and if you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com. There's a Q&A at the top of the page. You just click through, and you can ask a question, send it in. Make sure you're signed up for the Prudent Money e-letter, and you know where the podcast section of the website is. And, of course, you can listen to the podcast on any major podcasting platform. Thank you for letting me get that out, because I always want to make sure you know. So I'm talking about the listener who wrote in about the being 62, looking to retire at 67, has an old 401k with an old company. Should he roll it over? And what should he do with this money? I would add to this question, if I were asking it, also, what other steps would you be taking if you were 5 years out? I've talked about this many times. Very, very important if you're 5 years out and even up to 10 years out, steps that you should be taking and things that you should be doing. So let's start off and talk about the rollover and what you should be considering. First, let me give you an example to emphasize why you should take the 401k with you. Let's say that you do get laid off and you go back to your office. You've had that very uncomfortable discussion and termination. Go back to your office, start collecting your things. Well, the thing that's going through your mind is, I want to make sure that I get everything. I don't want to have to come back, and I don't want to leave anything. So you definitely take your time. You put your stuff away. You've got some boxes, and unfortunately, you're going to do that walk out with your boxes, and you're accumulating all of your personal belongings. And what oftentimes we do is we take everything else out of that office, but we leave our 401k plan at that company. Obviously, you can't physically take it with you, but I would suggest, and I'll tell you why, that it should totally be a consideration to move that money and roll it over to an IRA and or to a 401k plan. And I'll break down the pros and cons of each. But the first thing that I would do after I physically left my job and I was terminated, my job was terminated, I would call HR and find out the steps to take to move my 401k. Or if you've got a financial advisor, they should be able to tell you exactly what to do and get that taken care of. And that very important personal belonging, probably your most high valued personal belonging, get that taken care of. So why wouldn't you just move it all, leave it there? Well, let's answer that question first. Why wouldn't you just leave it at your former company? The problem that you have with that is that, and I've seen this happen many times, is that you forget about it. You end up remembering about it, but it's not obviously not a top of mind. Funds could change. Your prior company could change the fund lineup and rebalance your funds without you having any say in it. And because they put your funds into what's called like funds when they change the fund lineup, you could forget how much risk you're taking, and you could find yourself in a situation where you're taking way too much risk, but you just didn't remember. The whole idea is that you want all your investments working off the same page. And really the best way to do that is to have everything at the same place. I've always looked at the 401k plan as, okay, well, it's you can get some free money, which is always the big benefit of it, the match. But beyond that, you have cookie cutter mutual funds. You don't have a very good selection of bond or fixed or safe type funds. And even your stock funds, you don't really have a good, if any at all, selection of funds that are considered low risk. So to me, when you go from a 401k to a 401k plan, you are basically making a parallel move. And that's exactly what you don't want to do. Even if you decided to move the money to an advisor, you want to make sure you're not making another parallel move. Parallel moves, no good. You want to move your money to something that is going to benefit you for moving it to. It's going to be a better situation. There's added value. Maybe you're paying additional fees you weren't paying, and those fees create this particular benefit and this particular value, and it makes it worthwhile. So that is the reason why you want to move money. So my bias, and I've got a real bias towards this, is that you move it to an IRA. And there are really 4 major reasons why it makes sense to move it to an IRA. First, or actually 5, you know where the money is. You can reach out and touch the money. You can see the money. You have not lost the money. It's with you. That's a big one. Probably the most that I've had. I took a client on in the early 2000s, excuse me, and he and his wife had 15 to 20 investment accounts. That was a consolidation job right there. But you don't want your money all spread out like that. You want everything working off of one page. So the first thing is getting back control of your money. The second thing is choice. You have, I don't know, 8 to 10 different mutual funds, 10 to 15 mutual funds. And, I had a listener come to my office one time, a long time ago, and said, I am very diversified. I have my money spread out over 10 to 12 different funds. And I said, actually, you have no diversification at all because you're using 12 stock funds. So they're all going to go the same way if the market craters or anything happens. All going to lose money because they're all stock funds. Or chances are they're all going to lose money because they're all stock funds. So in my opinion, 401k plans for those that want to run a risk strategy, so you're actually paying attention to risk. It's really difficult but it can be done, but it is difficult to do in a 401k plan because it's just the limited choices that you have. And then again, I'll make sure that you hear me say this, even if you've got 20 or 25 funds, unless they're funds that are doing different things, have different risk levels, it's not much of a choice because they all pretty much do the same thing. And then you've got those lifestyle funds, which I tell you, be careful about, don't really like them. Target date funds, all the same thing. It just makes it look like when they put down 15 target date funds, it makes it look like you've got all these choices when you really don't have all these choices. The second thing that I've already spoke to a little bit is strategy. You want to make sure that you can run a good risk strategy. The one thing that is missing from most retirement plans is what are you going to do when you get into a different environment, when the market does turn south and the risk is high. I mean, I think it could come back today. The risk is so peculiar today, the way things have worked out when you compare today's time period versus history as far as bear markets go. The third one is expenses. Expenses that you're paying on your current investments, which shouldn't be too out of control, versus the potential if you move into an IRA with your financial advisor and they're managing money for you. And I'll talk to that in just a second. Then you want to know, if I'm paying these expenses, am I getting something in return for them? As far as your financial advisor goes, if they are just saying, well, this is what I would put my money into, and it looks no different than your 401k plan, you are making a parallel move. They've got to, it's a fiduciary responsibility to show, if they're asking you to pay fees, what you're getting in return for that. That's a huge deal. So make sure that you have a good idea of why you're paying those expenses and why there's a potential payoff for you. And that it's just not they're not going to do anything, they're going to buy and hold. Well, you could buy and hold in any 401k plan just with straight up index funds and be okay without paying fees. Guaranteed investments. Now, most 401k plans don't have guaranteed investments. You would have those types of investments and investments that produce income. You just basically have a lot of options and choice when you move that money to a IRA, and you open up a lot of different choice and options. So that's what I would do. And of course, there's the decision about what do you do 5 years out. We'll catch up with that question on the next program and talk about that next week. Hey, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.